If you've ever searched YouTube for how to fix your car, you've probably seen ChrisFix. The guy never shows his face, but with crystal clear close-ups and step-by-step guides, he's taught millions of people how to fix their own cars. After binging over 100 hours of his videos, I boiled it all down into the big lessons, the golden rules, and the repair secrets that come up again and again. So, what's the first thing you notice after watching ChrisFix for that long? He makes you believe you can fix anything yourself, and here's how. ChrisFix is core philosophy. The first big takeaway I got from ChrisFix is his philosophy. ChrisFix isn't just teaching you how to swap a brake pad or clean an air filter. He's teaching you how to approach car ownership, and the foundation of that is simple. You can fix it yourself. Even the jobs that look intimidating, like pulling a transmission, rebuilding suspension components, or diagnosing mysterious check engine lights, are broken down into steps so precise and so calm that they suddenly don't feel so impossible. He's basically saying, you don't have to be a pro mechanic, you just need to be willing to learn. And a big part of that philosophy is the details. Watch enough ChrisFix and you'll realize he doesn't cut corners. He'll spend a full minute showing you how to properly clean a bolt before reinstalling it. Or he'll zoom in on a torque wrench just to show the exact number he's tightening to. At first it might feel obsessive, but the more you watch, the more you realize that this is why his fixes last. He's building habits around precision, cleanliness, and doing things the right way. Then there's the safety piece, which he never skimps on. If you take away nothing else from his videos, remember this: jack stands, torque wrenches, gloves, non-negotiable. He won't even start a repair without first explaining how to lift the car properly, how to chock the wheels, or how to double-check stability. It's not dramatic, it's not flashy, it's just methodical, and it saves lives. Finally, ChrisFix always explains why. That's probably the secret sauce of his channel. He doesn't just say, replace this part. He explains what it does, why it fails, how it affects your car's performance, and why doing the job correctly makes a difference. And once you understand the logic behind it, the job itself doesn't just feel like following instructions. It feels like you're actually learning how cars work, his favorite types of cars to work on. Another thing that stands out after watching so much of his content is the kind of cars he gravitates toward. If you're expecting high-end supercars, Lamborghinis, or six-figure restorations, that's not ChrisFix's world. His passion is for the cars most of us actually drive. Older, used vehicles that have life left in them but need a bit of love. Think of his Crown Vic project car, his Drift Mustang, or even the random beat-up sedans and trucks he pulls into the driveway to bring back to life. These aren't showroom queens, they're relatable, often affordable cars you could realistically buy off Craigslist. And that's intentional. He avoids playing brand favorites, but his projects lean towards vehicles that are simpler, more DIY friendly, and reliable enough to be worth fixing. And that's the beauty of it. He's showing you how to take something that most people would write off and give it a second chance. Watching him strip down a tired engine bay, swap suspension parts, or revive a set of neglected brakes makes you realize cars don't have to be disposable. With the right knowledge, you can keep them running for years. It's all a confidence booster. If ChrisFix can take a 20-year-old sedan with 200,000 miles and make it feel new again, suddenly working on your daily driver doesn't seem so scary. Maintenance tips he repeats. Now let's talk about the maintenance lessons that ChrisFix hammers home over and over again. These are the things that show up across dozens of his videos. And honestly, they're the backbone of car ownership. If you remember nothing else, remember these. The first one, and it's almost cliche, but he means it, is to change your oil on time every time. He makes it clear that oil isn't just a fluid, it's your engine's lifeblood. Fresh oil keeps things lubricated, cool, and running smoothly. Neglect it, and you're basically sentencing your engine to an early death. And when he does an oil change on camera, it's not just drain and refill. He walks through the type of oil, the filter choice, the torque on the drain bolt, and even how to reset your car's oil light. It's the kind of detail that makes you realize how easy it is to do it right, and how costly it can be if you don't. Another tip that comes up constantly is keeping your throttle body and MAF sensor clean. These are small components that most drivers don't even think about, but ChrisFix shows how much of a difference they make. A dirty throttle body can cause rough idling or hesitation. A clogged MAF sensor can ruin your fuel economy. But with a can of CRC cleaner and 5 minutes of work, you can solve those problems before they ever show up. Then there's suspension. ChrisFix is borderline obsessed with reminding people that suspension wear isn't something you should ignore. A squeaky bushing, a loose ball joint, or a tired strut isn't just annoying, it's a safety hazard. He explains that replacing these parts early not only makes the car feel tighter and safer, but it also prevents bigger, more expensive failures down the road. And finally, one of his most underrated lessons: use the right chemicals. Anti-seize on bolts, dielectric grease on electrical connectors, and thread locker where it matters. These little touches are what separate a hack job from a professional grade repair. He repeats this constantly because they're the details most beginners overlook. And one last thing he slips in throughout his videos is to document your repairs. Write it down, save receipts, and keep a log of what you did and when. It may sound tedious, but it gives you a record of your car's health. If you ever sell it, you look like a responsible owner. If you keep it, you have a roadmap of what's been done. Either way, it's one of those small habits that pays off big. Tools and products he swears by. If there's one thing ChrisFix makes clear, it's that you don't need $1 million shop to work on your car, but you do need the right tools. And he's very particular about what he trusts. For diagnostics, it all starts with an OBD2 scanner. He repeats this over and over. Don't just guess at what's wrong with your car. Scan it, get the code, and then work from there. That alone saves you from throwing money at parts you don't actually need. Then come the must-haves for hands-on work. A torque wrench so you're tightening bolts to spec, an impact wrench for stubborn fasteners, and a brake caliper tool because brakes are one of the jobs he does the most often. And when he gets into the more advanced projects, that's where you'll see specialty gear like borescopes, fluid testers, and UV dye kits to track down leaks. When it comes to chemicals and consumables, ChrisFix leans on a pretty consistent lineup. CRC cleaners for throttle bodies and MAF sensors, Permatex RTV for sealing, copper anti-seize for bolts, and always full synthetic oil. What to avoid? ChrisFix is just as vocal about what not to do. The first big mistake? Skipping the basics. Things like torquing bolts correctly or applying brake grease might sound small, but missing them can cause serious issues later. Another is rushing repairs. He constantly emphasizes patience, double-checking steps, taking the time to clean surfaces, and making sure parts are aligned properly before tightening everything down. Cutting corners only means you'll have to redo the job later. Or worse, put yourself at risk. And then there's the temptation to buy the cheapest parts possible. ChrisFix doesn't mince words. Cheap brakes, suspension parts, and fluids aren't worth it. They fail quicker, perform worse, and can compromise your safety. His stance is clear. Spend a little more up front to avoid paying a lot more down the line. Finally, he warns against ignoring warning signs. Vibrations, strange noises, fluid leaks, these aren't wait-and-see problems. They're early signals that something's wrong, and catching them early almost always means an easier, cheaper fix. Mindset. You can learn this. Maybe the most important thing ChrisFix teaches doesn't come from a wrench or a can of cleaner. It comes from his mindset. He drives home the idea that you don't need to be a pro mechanic to do this. He encourages beginners to watch a video twice, take their time, and trust the process. If you mess up, that's okay. It's part of learning. The key is to approach each repair with patience and curiosity rather than fear. And he always reminds you, every car is different. What works on a Mustang might look slightly different on a Toyota, but the principles are the same. Once you learn the basics, you can adapt. At the heart of it, ChrisFix is about pride. Pride in doing something yourself, saving money, and knowing your car inside and out. And of course, doing it safely every single time. After 100 hours of watching, the pattern is clear. He makes complex repairs approachable for beginners. He never compromises on safety or detail. He balances clarity with depth. You always learn, but you never feel overwhelmed. That's why millions of people trust him and why his videos have become the go-to starting point for anyone who's ever thought, maybe I can fix this myself. But it's more than that. ChrisFix has built a community. A place where people share their wins, their struggles, and their progress, and that encouragement is just as important as the tutorials themselves. Because in the end, it's not just about fixing cars. It's about building confidence, gaining independence, and realizing you're capable of way more than you thought. That's the real lesson behind every ChrisFix video. Now I want to hear from you. What's your favorite thing about ChrisFix? Drop it in the comments below, and if you want more car content broken down simply, don't forget to hit subscribe, because we've got plenty more coming your way.